Patrick here at the top of Kinpo-san in Kumamoto, and today we're going to be talking about the Western Kashihon Gekigai Anthology Mauser 96 here on GAIJINGUY.
피치 잡프 잡프랑랑랑 아따짠 너고 모두는 으레다 얀나기 놈의 가다레 나이테이루 피치 잡프 잡프랑랑랑.
Howdy y'all, and welcome to another edition of GAIJINGUY. Today we're going to be talking about MAUSER 96 from 1965 by Sato Pro. And then me and Old Yeller here are going to have a little talk out back. This is Gekigai Kashihon MAUSER 96, number 23, Western Special. Seibugeki Tokushu. Okay. In Japanese, Mozeru, but in English, Mauser, which is a machine pistol, I believe, originally. And so this is an action series for Kashihon. It's a Kashihon action series created by Sato Masaaki's production company, Sato Pro. This is number 23 from 1965, a special Western focus issue, but originally this series started in 1962, right after Sato created his production company. Let's go ahead and open it up and take a look. Okay, so these end papers I've seen before. So we have these characters here, which are obviously Umezu Kazuo's characters, but this illustration itself looks like it was done by Sonoda Mitsuyoshi, which we'll talk about. Here's the stamp. Here's the stamp of the Kashihon shop, the Kashihonya, the rental comics shop. You've got Frankenstein, you've got a Tarzan looking guy, you've got Superman, and a whole other cast of characters. So, you know, Gekigai comics, obviously these Kashihon comics had a wide range of subject material. Okay, so here's the closest thing we have to an index. It lists 3 stories, but there are actually a few more than that, and it features a great illustration by Kawasaki Noboru. Love that. And you got the, whatever that stuff is, signed there. Logo, and we dive in. So this is the first story. It's Suiki Pursuit by Sonoda Mitsuyoshi. But if you look at the cover, it says Arikawa Eiichi Aratame Sonoda Mitsuyoshi. Okay, so newly named Arikawa Eiichi, newly named Sonoda Mitsuyoshi. So apparently he switched his name around 1964, but he must have done a number of works under the original name because this is on a lot of books I've seen that he's had to tell everybody, oh, but this is my new name now. The artist formerly known as Arikawa Eiichi. He was born in Osaka and worked on a ton of these hard-boiled Kashihon anthologies. And he first debuted in 1958. So this is Suiseki. First of all, you turn the page and you get these things in the margins. This is a glossary of Western terms, like Western related terms. Things like bedroll, Bowie knife, outlaw, Mustang, and such. But also terms I've never heard of, such as Oklahoma rain, which means sandstorm. So we were talking about the creator, right? Sonoda Mitsuyoshi. I just want to say a little bit more because it's quite an interesting guy. One series that he made is called the Iron Muscles series. I'd like to show you a cover of Iron Muscle number 2, Napoleon the Assassin. It's pretty cool. It also mentions the name change. This series, the Iron Muscle series, has been reprinted in one book because apparently there were only 3 parts. And it's also available on Kindle in Japan under the Kindle Unlimited program, which a lot of old and rare comics are. So if you need for some quick research, you know, I don't always sign up for the Kindle Unlimited, but when I need to do some research, there's several series which are, you know, which I'd like to take a look at, which they have. So I will sign up temporarily for that. Okay, on to the story. So this is Billy. Hey, Billy. And Billy is on the hunt. He's on the hunt. And then he's thinking back to 7 years before when this bad-looking guy, you can tell he's a bad guy because of the dark circles under his eyes. You know, kind of like Light in Death Note. Once he uses the Death Note, his eyes kind of change. And it's one of the things, you know. Once you turn evil, you get the dark circles under your eyes, you know, which is a manga trope, I guess. So anyway, here's Quick Draw Silver Eagle. As soon as the patrons figure out who he is, they leave, and the sheriff is left. And the sheriff is like, throw down, old son. So you're gonna regret it. And they do throw down. But it is Silver Eagle who gets the drop on the sheriff. And you can tell who Silver Eagle is by Eagle on his gun. And now we're back in the present. Billy the Kid. Well, when he was a kid, he was told if he could track down Silver Eagle and get rid of him or bring him in, he would be offered the sheriff's position at 3 times the going rate. And so for these 7 years, he's trained and has been tracking the Silver Eagle. But he doesn't know what the Silver Eagle looks like. And he runs into him here in the desert. And he only recognizes him because of the gun. And he's like, it's you. And Billy outdraws Silver Eagle in this great 2-page spread. Look at that. Billy gets a drop on him. And then he outdraws him again. And, you know, as a prize and also to prove that he's taken down Silver Eagle. He makes Silver Eagle's gun his own, and he comes back into town after a long, long time to claim his long-awaited prize. And the townspeople are ready to welcome the young hero. But no, they see the gun and they think it's Silver Eagle himself. And blah, blah, blam. I hate blah, blah, blam. Poor Billy. So now we know we're in a world where the good guy doesn't always win. All right, next up we have Sajin no naka no otoko tachi, Men Caught in the Desert Dust, by Sato Masaaki, the man behind Sato Pro, and this publication, of course. Sato was a member of Gekiga Kobo and also New Gekiga Kobo, which Saito Takao tried to start up. But Sato was apparently not a fan of Saito's writing philosophy or something like that. And so New Gekiga Kobo ended before it even started. So apparently this Sato guy was an originator of Picaresque Manga. So let's just very briefly discuss what picaresque means. A picaresque narrative is usually written in first person as an autobiographical account. The main character is often of low character or social class. He or she gets by with their wits and rarely deigns to hold a job. There is little or no plot. The story is told in a series of loosely connected adventures or episodes. There is little, if any, character development in the main character. Once a picaro, always a picaro, a rogue. His or her circumstances may change, but these rarely result in a change of heart. The picaro's story is told with a plainness of language or realism. Satire is sometimes a prominent element. The behavior of a picaresque hero or heroine stops just short of criminality. Carefree or immoral rascality positions the picaresque hero as a sympathetic outsider, untouched by the false rules of society. So there you go. That is the picaresque. Now, his comics were labeled as dangerous, and Kashihon publishers learned to avoid him like the plague. And I can kind of see why, because in the 80s, he had a whole series of books just titled Rape. Sounds like a sweet guy. So among his assistants were Kawasaki Mieko and Matsumori Tadashi. Now we've seen Matsumori's name mentioned in another Kashihon read-through, but Kawasaki is a ladies comic artist who has drawn one of the craziest titles I own, Yo Adoro, which is a mix of Skeban and Esper and horror, all kinds of stuff mixed in there. So anyway, let's get into the story. So in this story you have Charlie. Charlie's an outlaw. But as he's outlawing through the desert, he comes across a stagecoach which has been attacked, obviously by Native Americans. And there's one survivor. This is Lori. And she's the only survivor, all by herself. And Charlie just has to help her, because he's an outlaw, but he's not that much of an outlaw. So anyway, they come riding in. He meets this group which has helped him out, And so this group, the leader of the group, saying, you know, I've got a plan for a bank robbery. Are you in? And he's like, well, since you helped me out, yeah, sure, count me in. And him and his cohorts are a little bit, they're not happy about him bringing the woman, Lori, back with him. So things are already kind of turning against Charlie. And then when they come into a town, there's a wanted poster that they see. But they go ahead do the bank robbery and kill innocent people and leave. And while Charlie is gallivanting with Lori, the gang members are like, let's turn him in for that extra cash, and then we can blame him for the bank robbery as well, pin it all on him and get away with the money. And so the sheriff arrives with a posse and they capture him. And Charlie realizes that he's been set up because everybody else is gone. However, up in the hills, it's Lori. And Lori apparently is a crack shot. Shoots a moving horse, right in the leg. Now that is a good partner to have. Somebody who can shoot that good from that far. I mean, we don't know what she was aiming at, but anyway, Lori and Charlie get away. And they're going to run away, but he says, first, I've got something I've just got to do. And you know what that is. Revenge. So he tracks down the gang. He's like, thanks for turning me in, you jerks. And they throw down and blam, blam, blam. Blam, 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 blam. Now they can be together. But he says, nope, forgive me, Lori, I've got to turn myself in. And she's yelling after him, Charlie, Charlie. And that's the only part I don't get. I don't get at the end why he suddenly decides to turn himself in. There's no lead up to it, just kind of happens right away. Or maybe he's just saying that to ditch Lori. That's a possibility, but anyway. That's the end. Except for the ending, quite a gripping tale. Let's look at the readers page and notice again that a large number of the readers are from the western part of Japan. We've got two guys from Fukuoka. On the next page, we've got what? We've got 1, 2, Kumamoto. There's Fukuoka, Kumamoto. So 4 guys from Kumamoto. We got guys from Osaka, different parts. And then we have this guy from Kumamoto, Matsumori Tadashi. And we've talked about him in another Kashihon video. So yeah, future assistant to Sato Masaaki. Maybe this was his audition. Anyway, more credence to the idea that kashihonya, rental shops, were perhaps more widespread in the West than in the East of Japan. So moving on. Here we have a sketchbook page by Mine Takeshi. But moving on here, we have Kake, Gamble by Mine Takeshi. And showing off his gun here. Really great work on the guns. I mean, everybody's doing really great with the guns. So let's take a look. Okay, we have this poor puppy tied to the stake. and a little boy. And the little boy is telling these two scoundrels, "Don't do it, mister." And the scoundrels are like, "Okay, I'll bet you whoever can shoot the dog in the ear without killing it wins the bet." And the kid's like, "Don't do it." And they're like, "Shut up, kid." And then a different guy shows up and he's like, "Leave that kid alone." And of course, it's the big brother of the kid. And he's like, "Oh, okay, I've changed my mind. I no longer want to shoot the dog or the kid. I want to fight you. And to make it interesting, let's make it a knife fight." And so they're at it, and they're having a fight, and the knives come out. Problem is, the brother's probably not as good at the roughhousing as the scoundrel, and so he loses the fight. And then he says, "Your life is mine," and I say, "Get on out of here. Your love for your little brother has touched me. If only my little brother were alive," and he sheds a tear. So, what a golden-hearted scoundrel he was. And next, Gekito no Sue, After the Fierce Battle by Fuji Masaki. You notice that these typed out titles in Romaji are in every chapter. And I wonder if I'm guessing this happened after these pages were turned in. It was kind of maybe presented as a unifying design element. Stay still. Unifying design element. So we have Fuji Masaki. Okay, in this story, we have... Who is this? This is Tony and Julia, and they are being chased and finally captured by a group of Native Americans, and they're going to be brutally executed until the chief's like, "Wait a minute, hold on there, Black Hawk, I've got an idea." And so he tells Tony, "Okay, if you guys want to get out of here, you have to shoot at your girlfriend, but you have to shoot around her head and not miss. If you miss, of course, she'll be dead. Or if you miss the tree, then you'll both be dead." So he focuses and he shoots. Bang, 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 bang. And a perfect grouping around her head. And so you think, oh wow, he's done a great job. And you wonder if the Native Americans are going to let them go. And they totally do. They're got lots of integrity. They're like, "You're free to go." And just when you'd think they're able to ride off into the sunset, no. Julia says, "Can't be with you. I cannot be with you, Tony." And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "If you really loved me, you would have been a lot more nervous shooting at my head, and therefore you would have shot me in the head. So you don't love me as much as you say you do. And so goodbye." Yep, some people are just hard to please. And then we have a little bit of a background from Fuji, which mentions that he's only 17 years old. I mean, you read about Golden Age and Silver Age creators in the States as well, who started in their teens, and it just blows your mind because you don't hear about this kind of thing anymore. So, different times. And then look at this, we have a special treat. This is a 4-panel gag by Mochizuki Akira of Wild 7 fame. So he's able to deftly manage gags as well. So now we're at the last story. It's obviously a big feature. It's in color, at the beginning at least. It's called 俺はこの寂しい丘に埋めてくれるな. Don't Bury Me on This Sad, Lonely Hill by Kawasaki Noboru, who would later draw the Western manga Isamu of the Wild West, or Wild West Boy Isamu. There's a couple of different ways you could translate it. But, you know, this is the famous Kawasaki Noboru who made his big break with A Star of the Giants, the baseball comic, written by Kajiwara Ikki, who is Kumamoto native. And now Kawasaki Noboru also lives in Kumamoto, though he's not originally from here. Okay, let's look at the story. It's the rain. Let's see. There was something I just saw in the Korean drama Squid Game, where the one character says something in Chinese and then he translates as, "A really good rain knows exactly when to appear." And so I love that line. I think it's a great show, great line. So this is Jack Raleigh, and this is the story of Jack Raleigh and Clementine and Raleigh's really good friend John. So at the beginning, this is Raleigh coming back into town. It's been 7 years. He looks, you know, conflicted. And the color of his hat should give you some kind of hint. And then we have this guy with a rifle who's out for his blood. And this is a bounty hunter. And apparently there's a $1,000 bounty on Jack Raleigh's head. And so Jack Raleigh, since a rifle is being pointed at him, he's within his rights to take this guy out. But what he does is he just injures him. So even though we know he's an outlaw and he's wearing that black hat, that he's not without compassion. So anyway, he didn't kill him. And he goes up to the meeting up tree and he waits for his friend John, and he has a little reminiscence about 7 years ago when he told John that he had to leave for a money-making opportunity so that he could come back and marry his sweetheart, Clementine. Oh, my darling, you knew I was going to throw it in there at least once. But notice the color of his hat. So when he left town, he was a white hat, a good guy who just had to make his way in the world before he could ask his girl to be his wedded wife. And so he takes off and he asks John to take care of Clementine. But now it's 4 years later, and he said goodbye to Clementine and hopes she understands. But he's come back, and he's now wearing a black hat. And, so obviously he's in a little bit more complicated situation than he left. And this kind of, the color of the hat change, very clear indicator. Okay, so now we're back in the present. John arrives and tells him, Jack, actually, I've got this great opportunity now, running cattle for a guy named Ben Spencer, and I kind of need money because my wife is sick. And Raleigh hears the name Ben Spencer, and he's like, what? Where's this Ben Spencer dude? I have to have a few words with him. He's like, oh, he's at the saloon. He's like, all right, I'll be right back. And so goes off. And it starts raining again. I guess it's raining the whole time, but kind of a light rain, and then it gets heavy again. And so he saunters into the saloon. The saloon doors creak open, and he sees Ben Sanders and Ben Sanders' crew. And we can tell again by the eyes, the shifty eyes, that these are bad, bad fellas. And he tells them, it's your fault that I've been chased around as an outlaw, that the law is after me, and you screwed me over, and now you're gonna get what's coming. And Ben signals to his guys. They all draw, but old Jack is pretty good with his firearms, and bang, 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 he takes him out, leaving just Ben. And when Ben tries to draw, double shot in the chest. Double shot. So, if you've ever tried to shoot 2 guns at a target at the same time, you will know exactly how difficult it is. Especially something that's moving. Much less a stationary target. It's not easy. You can really only focus on one gun unless you're like a trick shooter or just have way too much time on your hands practicing gunmanship. So he's taken out Ben Sanders, and now he's back talking to John, and he realizes that, if his friend Jack would have gone with Ben, he would have been set up for cattle rustling the same exact way. And so he was doing something to protect his friend. But now, for some reason, now he's drawing on the bounty hunter. The bounty hunter, he told him to leave him alone. He told him to leave him alone, and the bounty hunter just would not do it. You can see that the bounty hunter has drawn his gun, and he was forced to take him out for good. And he said, I warned him. I didn't want to shoot. Why'd you make me shoot? So, anyway, he tells Jack, you say you're a friend, but I know that you married Clementine behind my back. You married her, and you're a traitor. I hate you, and I'm going to shoot you, so you better draw. And we know that Jack is a quick draw. And so here he comes, out with the guns, and John doesn't want to do it. He calls his name out as he shoots him right through the body. Raleigh calls his friend's name out again. You wanted me to shoot you. And he said, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. He said, if you would have gone to Texas with Ben Spencer, you would have been set up and you wouldn't have been able to get the money anyway. But now you defeated an outlaw and you can collect the $1,000 reward and you can help make Clementine better again. I just have one favor. Just one favor. And that's, don't bury me on this sad, lonely hill. And what a great end to a great anthology. So really, really nice collection of Western stories, If you're not into the Western genre, maybe you're just not ready, okay? Because I know for many years I had no interest in Westerns or cowboys, Like my cowboy phase, I didn't really have one, but because my dad's from Texas, my grandparents did get me like a cowboy set when I was like 3 or 4. And so I enjoyed wearing my cowboy outfit. But cowboy just wasn't. I was more interested in being a spaceman than I was in being a cowboy. It was just that, I was born while the first men were still walking on the moon. And so, it's a different time for me. It was robots and rockets. And science fiction was a much bigger draw for me than cowboys were. And you didn't have many cowboy movies. There were some, but not like the 50s when there were hundreds of westerns made in a year. Hundreds. And every movie studio was putting out westerns. In the 70s, you just had a few. In the 80s, even fewer, but some. So, when the time is right and you feel it, dive in, because there is some really good stuff out there. I tried to ask Matsumoto Reiji what his favorite Western manga was. And because he did Gun Frontier, which is a Western, and Galaxy Express 999 has some Wild West type of elements mixed with the science fiction. So obviously, he likes the genre. But he said he couldn't think of a Western manga that he liked, but his favorite movie, Western, was Johnny Guitar with Joan Crawford. And I was a little bit surprised because from what I knew of that movie, it's a thinly veiled, story of this love-hate between these two female characters. Very strong queer undertones. Very interesting movie. I mean, Joan Crawford and then the other actress who plays her rival are amazing, like goosebumps, and so I can see why he likes it, but I can also see how his Queen Emeraldus is based on this badass character that Joan Crawford plays. So, anyway, what I'm saying is, all I am saying, give Westerns a chance. That's all I'm saying. So, let's look. Here we have a call for students to the Gekiga Kyoshitsu. So, take a class with Sato Pro and learn from the pros, from the artists, and you can get original art from Sato Pro's artists and such. So, man, how I wish I could have been alive and in the right place and time to take advantage of that. I did do a send-in course with Joe Kubert when he was still alive. He still has a school of comics art, and I did a send-in course for penciling, and actually I remember drawing a page with a Western theme, and it sent back with a piece of tracing paper over it with a lot of corrections, and you should, watch your proportions, watch the balance, you need to do this. And I don't know for sure if it was Kubert himself who did those corrections, but if not, it was somebody who definitely writes and draws in a similar style. So either way, I really regret not finishing the last few assignments. So anyway, and here's the last page where they're saying, oh boy, this one was not an easy issue to put together. They had to send out little Mine, 17-year-old Mine, to go pick up pages from Sonoda and Kawasaki, and it took him 4 days to bring back those pages. So when he came back, they were like, oh, you're alive. Good to see, and good to hear. And then you also have them asking for people to send in art for the readers page and such. All right, that's it. I actually have another Western anthology to cover, so I hope you look forward to that. And thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive on Gaijinguy, and I'll see you in the funny pages.